Hi everybody. Well, this is the paint class. I'm so glad you guys could join me. Um, you'll first need to go to the Facebook page of the church website to reference your picture because it will not show up on a video screen against screen. Um, before you start, make sure you have 3 of the primary colors: red, blue, yellow, black and white, and I typically get the color brown because for me brown is hard to make, mixing colors. Um, it may not be for some people, but it is for me. um, you also want to make sure you have at least these 3 different paint brushes. This brush here you can get maybe for 50 cents at a hardware store. It's my favorite brush. We'll use this a lot for blending backgrounds and blending stuff together. This one here is just a regular smaller brush. I like the ones that slant like this, but you can get straight or whatever you feel comfortable with. And I also like to get what they call a script brush, which is a very, very fine brush to do very, very fine, small little details. And I also use it to sign my name too on the painting. Now we'll get started. First off, if you look at the background of the picture, you'll see that the background is light blue. Now to make light blue, you'll need blue and white and mix it together to see what color you have. If it's too light for you, add in more blue. If it's too dark for you, add in a little more white. Just pick the color that you like with the light blue. I myself got an individual acrylic Simply Basic light blue from Walmart. I believe it's only like $3 to $4, maybe $5. And as you look at the picture, the background is just pretty much a simple blue, simple light blue. And I'm going to just start adding, and you're going to do crisscrosses like this with your blender brush until the whole thing does not show white. And you want to go down to about right there. So do the whole background just like this. Now if you wind up with a little thing like this here that's in the way, you can just remove that. Wipe your finger with a paper towel. But do cross like little X's all the way across your canvas. And then as you do the X's, once you cover up all the white, you can go straight across to just kind of smooth it out so it doesn't look so choppy. And in this photo, the background is not choppy. It's just a plain, simple background. And I didn't get enough light blue here, so I'm going to put a little more on mine. Palette. Here we go again. One thing I like about painting is it is a good witness piece to people who isn't believers in Christ. They'll look at your painting and it's a conversation piece. They'll want to know about it, and you can use it to tell them about Christ without actually approaching them right away about it. And some people don't like the approach. And I can say I never seen myself actually doing a painting lesson until now. But one of these days, maybe we can do one in person when COVID's over. And I'm just smoothing this out here so it turns out smooth. And then if you go down in the background of your painting, you'll see that there is a dark greenish color and a dark bluish color. We're going to do the dark bluish color first before the green color. So I'm putting darker green on, or darker blue, sorry. Darker blue on my palette here. You want to load your brush, but don't load it too much that you can't, that it's just a lake or something in your canvas of paint. If that happens, you can use a paper towel and tap it dry and then redo it. The biggest thing about acrylics is if you make a mistake, you can always wait for it to dry and paint over it. Now don't worry about if you go up into the light blue a little bit. I do that sometimes. I go into another color. And getting pretty close here to being done with our background. Now when I get down to the end of my canvas, depending on what's holding your canvas, you can just pick your painting up carefully and paint the bottom, or kind of reach down with your brush if you have a paint easel. And there we go, we got the blue done. Next we're going to move on to green, and with green you want to take the color blue, which I already have quite a bit on my palette, so I might try to use the blue on my palette. And then you want to do yellow and mix them together. Now for green, you might want a little more yellow than blue, but mix it till you find the right color green that you like. Some might like a lighter green, and some might like a darker green. If you want it darker, add blue. If you want it lighter, add yellow. And here, kind of do this. Here I'm just using my blender brush, but some people, you might find it easier to use a middle in-between type brush like this. Whatever you feel comfortable with is fine. And you kind of will look and see where the light blue is and the dark blue is, and you kind of want to make a line just so you kind of know where the division is. Now the line does not have to be straight. It can go upwards. In fact, if you have an uneven line, it'll make your painting look better than if you used a flat line. So don't try to make it perfectly straight or anything. You don't want perfectly straight. And if it is a little wet and you can't get it quite the way you want it, wait for it to dry a little. But this will make the connection between the sky and the blue water. And now what I encourage you to do, after you've made your horizon here, is wait for your whole canvas to dry. Once it's dry, you can start looking at the shape of Jesus's robe And you want to try to use either a watercolor pencil or just a very thin brush using the script brush to draw out with white paint Jesus's robe, and draw it out to the closest shape you can find towards the robe. The robe is kind of a in between a T and a Y shape, so that's the shape you want to do his robe. It does not have to be perfectly straight, and as far as the robe goes, you don't want Jesus perfectly centered into your painting. So don't try to stress yourself by making the robe exactly perfect in the middle of the painting, because you never want to centrally paint something in a painting. You want it a little off to the side or a little this way, but not directly in the center. But Jesus' robe can be in the center, of course, but I will be taking an intermission break, and thank you. Now we're at the point of, once you got your green background, is you want to stipple. And it's fairly lightly tapping your canvas with the brush, with just that part of the brush. If you used light green for the back, you want to use dark green to stipple. If you decided to use a darker green for your setup, you want to use a lighter green to stipple. So what you're going to do is small little taps like this all the way across your green. And it's going to start looking more and more like grass. I used a lighter background green, so I'm using a darker stipple green. And it'll start looking like that, and it'll look a little more like grass. Now in this point in time, you may want to stop the video so you can fix your grass and get it the way you want it to look like. Just remember, it doesn't have to be even straight. You want it to look more natural, and yeah. Okay, now we're going to work on the robe of Jesus. Did you draw out your robe yet? You may or may not have done that, which is fine. Or if you choose to want to do it with me, that's fine too. What you're going to do is take this size brush. I have the slant part in the brush. Some brushes don't have a slant. I just like using the slant. And you're going to kind of just guess where the robe might be for you. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect. And you just kind of draw out a robe. And if you look at your picture, it's kind of more like a TY for Jesus's robe. And this is the coolest part of the painting that people actually see. The background part is just a background, so they're not very focused on the background. So even if you didn't get the background to look exactly the way you wanted it, that's fine. So you're just going to keep painting through, and if your background isn't totally dry yet, you're going to see kind of a light green yellow show up. Then you might just want to let it dry a little more. You can see that in mine. But just kind of draw out the robe where you think it might be, and then fill it in with white once you think you got it drawn out the way, the shape and size you want it. Now remember, with your robe, you still got Jesus' hands sticking out, like, you know, like right here and right here. So you fill in this with white. And we'll just keep filling this in. if you choose not to, you don't have to fill the entire robe in with white because we will be going over it with brown. I'm just going to do kind of more the edge part. I just kind of filled this in more so you could, if you wanted to go by that, you could. Now remember with acrylics, if you messed up drawing the robe, let it dry. You can paint blue over it again because we only used a one color blue background. So the blue is kind of like your eraser if you mess up. And my Jesus isn't going to look like the picture because I didn't paint that picture. I'm really not sure who did. It was a picture I've seen online that was attractive, that could maybe show you some basic skills. And that's all this class is to show you how to kind of look at a picture and be able to paint it. When you look for a picture, you want to choose something with probably a very easy background to begin with. Unless you have a little more practice, then maybe choose a little harder one. The next painting video I'm actually going to do is a background with a lot of blending and then a shadow painting on top of the background. So, we got Jesus just about figured out there. And I'm not going to worry too much about the green because we're going to be painting brown over it. Now, if you look real close at the picture, you're going to see 3 shades of brown. So you're going to want to have 3 shades of brown ready. You want a dark brown or black. I wouldn't actually use black like you see in the photo. I'd use a really dark brown because black is a very strong color and you just barely want to touch with black if you use black. And then you want a kind of a medium brown in between the dark and the light brown, and then you want a light brown. So you'll see 3 tones of browns there. First off, I'd encourage you use the dark brown first and just kind of paint through this area here. And actually, because of the white, you'll see that's turning light brown. That's okay. I'm just going to leave it that way. And you do not have to totally fill in the robe with white like I started to do previously. I kind of like the blending thing of the colors. And I took a light brown there. Okay. But you want a lot of dark brown to go through here on the robe. And you want to make a very, take your time and go through this here and go really up to as far as you dare to with the brown. Because we only want a little bit of white highlight. Not a lot. Just to indicate that Jesus' robe is white. It may look kind of strange doing brown on a white robe, but we want to show different tones of colors. And the more different colors you can use when painting an object, the better and more realistic it will actually look. So we're just going to keep coming through here. And as you see, I'm kind of doing like a half T, half Y shape. And, you know, maybe I didn't go out as far as I wanted to. You can bring the brown right out there if it didn't go out as far as you would like it to. Like I didn't quite make it as far as I would have liked it to. And then when you get towards the middle of doing this, you kind of want to go in this kind of a shape, like a swaying shape like this, because it shows motion, and it'll actually show details of the creases and stuff of the robe, because a robe isn't going to be totally a flat robe. It has bumps and curls, and your clothing falls a certain way, especially when you're raising your hands up in the air. Your clothing kind of goes in this kind of a shape around your body. So we're going to just keep working on this with the dark brown, not the light brown. The reason this is light is because I put some white up there, and because I have painted a lot, I kind of like the blending a little bit of light and black, or dark, not black. And if you find that you painted maybe more paint than you wanted to on a certain part of the painting, even on the background, when you were on the background, you can dab it with a paper towel and wait for it to dry, and then paint it again with less paint. But we're getting there. I started learning how to paint when I was 16 years old. There was this lady in my life, her name was Ruby, and she was like a mentor to me. I wasn't a Christian, but we shared a common interest, and it was painting and drawing and art, and she really inspired me to keep studying, to keep going, and she introduced me to Christ through art. So art can be very, very powerful, like I said earlier, when witnessing to other people. Now, as you see here, I don't have a highlight of white. I actually do want to put a little bit of a highlight of white there. So what I'm going to do is do that. And I'm going to actually take a different brush to do that, because I really don't want white. We don't want a brownish white. I kind of want it more a brighter white. So, and a lot of times if you're doing details, if you stick your little pinky out and you lay it against your canvas lightly and adjust it to where you need it, you can have a real steady hand by doing that. And you can kind of move around, adjust it. Sometimes I just use my knuckle, but whatever feels comfortable for you doing it. You don't want to put a whole bunch of pressure or weight onto the canvas, because then you'll break your canvas, or it'll get all bent up out of shape and stuff. So we're getting there. Now I'm going to put a little white over here. Now some of you might have watched the painter Bob Ross in the day. I loved watching that guy, and he had this paintbrush flipping back and forth onto the easel. I don't quite do that because that would cause a mess all over my house. But it was kind of his trademark, and it was pretty cute. I'm just kind of outlining more, a little bit of where my robe is with the white. Now next, I'm going to take this brush and use a middle tone color of brown. It's not your dark brown, it's kind of your in the middle brown. And what you're going to do here is you're not going to paint it totally brown, but you're going to keep going through kind of this way or that way. If you look at the picture, you'll see kind of how parts of it is dark brown, parts of it is light brown, and parts of it is in the middle brown. Kind of use your picture for the reference to know how to do that. But before you do that, you're going to want to let this robe part dry. Now for me, it's not quite working yet to do the middle brown, so I'm going to have to wait, let the robe dry, and keep working from there. At this time, you might want to stop the video to let your robe dry and to do this kind of motions through your robe, or you can wait for me. So once you got this filled in with dark, if you look at your picture, you're going to notice that Jesus' robe isn't exactly this shape. Now you're going to want to put little curves and stuff in it to indicate a little more of a robe look. Like, for example, you have like, you know, there's shoulders. You kind of might want to put in there. I mean, and just kind of make it look a little wavier. I mean, because it isn't exactly this shape, but you want to like put a few wrinkles in. Whoops, I ran out of light there. And even at the sleeves, it's not exactly square. You want to round out the sleeves, but kind of get that robe appearance with the white. And like I said, a lot of the robe kind of, I'm going to use white just to show you, not that you do paint white there, but just to kind of show you some motion of what kind of motion the cloth is actually taking. And then right here, it's kind of got it going downward in the picture. So it isn't exactly that exact shape, but if it helps you to put white lines in, go ahead. But you don't have to. But make sure you get quite a few wrinkles in there in the shape. And then next you're going to take your really light blue, or light brown, excuse me, and what you're going to do, if you're mixing light brown, you're mixing with a lot of white and very little brown to make this cream brown. And you're going to see almost half of the robe in the picture is that color. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of follow the shape lines that we put, kind of just in areas. Don't fill in the whole thing. Just kind of keep going along with where you think the robe kind of flows as far as the material goes. It doesn't have to flow exactly like mine is flowing, because when everybody wears clothes, their clothes move a little differently, so, and I don't have the exact same robe on Jesus as you do, so, but just kind of keep going with the flow. Maybe by the sleeve here you might want to kind of do like a triangle type shape below the sleeve, but leave a little brown showing through, and just really work with what you got going there. Maybe fluff it kind of outward like a feather. You just really want the flow and movement of this. I'm going to keep going. And it might help to just kind of work on it little bits at a time. Little piece by little piece. I'm using a really small brush. Make sure you kind of have that flow of motion. Right in here is a good flow in motion because he has his arms up in the air. So you definitely want to show at least that part in your robe. And then like right here where his shoulders might be, looks like it's a shape with muscles or something. And then slowly, as you work on this, you're going to find you leave some show through, and you're going to add in more of a lighter brown that's a little darker than the light brown. And that is like half brown, half white. Where the other one is more like very tiny little brown and a lot of white. So you want to slip some of that color in there too. And the more color you build upon, the more 3D it's going to look. We kind of want to get some robe movements in there, like under here, your robe. The clothing might go this way, more towards your body, because you got to realize Jesus is wet, so your clothes are going to stick more to your body. And the whole motion here, you're going to see very little of this dark you recently painted. I mean, it's not going to be a lot of this dark brown that we painted earlier. A lot of it is going to be overtaken by these other colors. Now when you do acrylic painting, you're going to notice you want to do more, start with the dark color and work upon the dark color to a lighter color. Now if you're doing watercolors, it's actually the opposite. You want to go light to dark. But acrylic, it's dark to light. We might want a few strokes maybe there, just to indicate that there is some cloth. Move these strokes kind of inwards though, because you definitely want to show that the clothing sticks to Jesus, which will indicate that he's wet and not dry. And I notice that I might want my sleeves out a little bit more than what I have. You can go ahead and do that if you want. I'm just going to go out just a little bit more, maybe this way, just to adjust where I want the robe at. I mean, you might find, oh, Jesus' arms look a little too fat for me, or a little too skinny, or, you know, it's however you want Jesus to look like. We really don't know what Jesus looked like. This is just a person that we're trying to paint that might resemble Jesus. We'll only know what he really, really looks like when we get to see him again. But I'm sure everybody is just doing great on this. I can't wait to see everybody's paintings. I made this a little too round, so I might want to square it off a little. So what I'm going to do is add these colors in. Probably want to add in a little dark because I didn't start with the dark. that you can always adjust the robe with the painting, with Jesus. And we probably want a little bit of this. We want to keep this kind of glowing, flowing. Bring this down. And bring this across for most of your motion. And if you see a spot that maybe you think, oh, maybe a little more rope should be here, kind of make it a curve deal, because the shape is not exactly the shape of the rope. It was just giving you a starting point to work off of. I'm going to put a little more up here. So now, once you think you kind of got the robe the way you want it, it may take some time to, like you said, pause the video to get it to go where you want it to go. You can adjust it as the painting goes on to, oh, I didn't want it so big or so small. And you can redo it. And like I said, this blue will be your eraser. This color blue you can paint over a dried brown and it'll turn that color blue. Next we're going to do Jesus' head. You want to start with a really dark brown. And really, with the head, it's pretty easy. You just make the shape of the back of a head. Just kind of like that. And just kind of work to the size that you want for Jesus' hair. You can have long or short hair for Jesus. Just kind of give you a guideline there. And just kind of take your time, map it out. And then you want to do just kind of like straight lines that are squiggly lines. That will do his hair. Now what you want to do is you're going to use a really dark brown to do that. And then we'll put some highlights in after we get this dark brown down. And if you're using the same brush like I am, trying to get the dark brown in and it's just turning light, wash your brush out and then do the really dark brown. A lot of times I'm not washing my paints out of my brush, but it works for some people better to do that. And then next for Jesus' hair, we're going to add the light brown that you use, the half white, half brown. And we're going to kind of do the top of the head. And it just kind of flows down maybe a little bit. And then after that, you guessed it, it's going to be the really white, the white brown. And with this, you want just very little, not a lot, because it's only going to highlight just basically the top of Jesus' head. Just a little bit, little touches, not a lot. Get there so it looks a little better. And just bring it down. I kind of smeared it a little. And if you find that you did it and it's kind of blending in with the other, like mine is, it's kind of blending into the robe, go again with dark. And then you can always wait for it to dry and start all over. And then for me, going over with dark isn't exactly working too well, I'm going to do just a tiny bit of black in Jesus' hair. Just a tiny, not a lot. Because black is a very strong color. And I'm going to take the thinnest paintbrush I can find in my brushes here. That's pretty thin there. And when you load a round brush, this is a round brush, it's not flat, you don't want to dip it in like a French fry. I usually dip it in and then roll it so the paint is evenly distributed around the whole brush. And because it looks so much like the robe, I'm going to put some black in here. Because down here, this bottom part of Jesus' hair is actually dark. And if it gets too wet and the paint just isn't working, you can wait for it to dry to start all over again. Which I might have to with mine, but we'll see here. And if you want, you can bring some black up here. And black's actually adding a lot to Jesus, but you just really want to use very little streaks, just really fine. And you want a lot of dark towards the end of Jesus' hair. And I don't want to make you scared of using black. Black is good. You can still, if it mess up with the black, you can wait for it to dry and paint right over it. No problem. Acrylic paint is very, very forgiving. Watercolor isn't so forgiving, and oil paint, it has a little forgiveness, but then towards the end here, I'm going to almost use all black towards the end of Jesus' hair, just so it looks different from the robe. Next, we're going to work on Jesus' hands. And you'll find out too, you might want to adjust your robe based on his head or his hands. I mean, if he looks like, oh wow, this is too much robe, you can take the robe down too once it dries and use your blue as the eraser. Next we're going to be doing his hands. And I would encourage you to start with the white, with the lot of white with the brown. And if you look in the picture, Jesus' hand is not detailed. Neither one of his hands are detailed. They are just shapes. And what I seen with the one hand, which I thought was kind of funny, is it looked like this shape, almost like a lobster claw or crab. And that's about the only shape that is actually there. There is no other shape there. There's no details other than shading. And I might have drawn his lobster claw a little big, but we'll fix that with going over it with blue. Let me get a little blue here to fix his lobster claw. Because we use such a light color, it'll probably go over. Oh, no, not quite. I will have to wait till it actually dries. So I'll just work on another part of the painting until this section actually dries. Now, the other side, look on my computer here. The other side is more just kind of long. long arm, and it just kind of has this shape, like a snowman twig. And then it kind of goes up, but it's a little more filled in to kind of make it look like a hand would be good, but that's about the general shape. So we're going to work on that while we wait for the lobster claw spot to dry. And like me, I always make mistakes painting, but they can always be easily fixed. So we're just kind of working on this. And it's just a shape. There's no details. There is no details with the hands at all. And when you paint like that, it's just an impression. And a lot of people won't notice it because there's going to be later on a lot of detail with the water that they won't even notice the hand. So once you get the shape of the hand good, you want to actually add kind of a shadow. And the shadow being like your next lower brown that you've made, if you still have some. And the shadow part on this is below the hand, because you got the light kind of coming down, so the light side is going to be on this side of the hand because the light's beating against this hand. So you want the underneath dark, but you want it smoothed out too so it kind of slowly blends in. And it makes it look a little more 3D. Oh, you don't want to mess with that lobster claw yet. But yeah, just kind of keep the shape of your hand. Now if you get here and it's just blending too much in with the robe, you can always go back and just kind of, okay, maybe I want a little more white here because the robe. And then you can add just a little in there, you know. Shadows aren't exactly perfect in their shapes. And we'll see if this is dry enough. It might be. Actually fix that hand over there. Okay, now we're going to fix this a little darker so we can see where it is, where we want his hand, because I think I got a perfect shape here for his hand, at least for the painting. And then we got the eraser. Now you want to probably do this with a clean brush. I'm trying with the wet brush, and I don't think it's going to work here, or with the dirty brush. So I'm going to have to wait for that to dry a little more and use the brush that is cleaned and that. Now the next part is, while we wait for that to dry and fix it, is the exciting part is everybody likes the light part in the picture. I'm sure that's been so attracting in this whole picture, is that light coming down. And when I get my white here, I'll show you how to do that. Now most of this background isn't going to be as dark blue once we start working on the white. And with this one, you want to clean your brush or just get a different one that's already clean. I have a lot of clean brushes in front of me, so I'm just going to go ahead and use those, but some you may not. So I might have to have a water cup handy and a paper towel. Now, for this one, I got a blending brush here. It's a smaller one of those ones that I buy from the hardware store. It's smaller than this brush, but with the same bristle. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to take some white, and we're going to start off up here. And if you remember how to do that dabbing thing called stippling, that's what I'm doing right here, is stippling. And if you look, it's kind of in the shape of a half circle, so you kind of want to go in a half circle. Now, everything does not have to be perfectly centered, and there's going to be a lot of this tapping when it comes to this part. And if you tap them closer together, eventually it'll start kind of looking like a cloud. You want to just barely leave some blue in towards the bottom, but we will start with the top because we need the top. You could probably on the top just go like this too for the top, and then kind of stipple on the way down. That actually might be a little easier, but some people might want to do this. It's just however you would like the white light to show. Now for me, I'm going to mix white and the blue that I used to go pretty much across the canvas here. And it's actually going to make the sky lighter. And that's what you kind of want too, is the sky to be lighter in the background. We started it really dark, so when we did the robe, that you would have a good color to have as an eraser if you messed up. Now you might want to use a bigger brush for the lighter blue. You may not want to. But it's all kind of a blending thing when it comes to the light. And just kind of play with it to see what you like. I mean, you can dot some blue in here, and you just play with the color. I mean, you can bring this all the way down here as your background if you want, for the light blue anyway. Probably not the white, but that's if you want a lighter sky like in the picture. Like I said, I only chose darker so you would have a good eraser color. But this light is very, very special, and you really want to take your time using different blending brushes. If a bigger blending brush works for you, use it. But now would be a good time to pause the video and just kind of work on your light. And remember, the light goes, you know, kind of in there. But get it to get the sky to look the way you would like it to look. Hi, as you can see, I worked on the background a little bit. Kind of puffed up some white, and when I was doing all of this and painting a lighter blue in the background around Jesus's robe and stuff, I realized that when fabric is on a person and they're lifting their hands up, that their hand actually comes to the edge of the robe, not in the middle of the robe. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to start bluing out both hands and redo the hands with you. So, and as you can see, I've already kind of started bluing out the hand here. And as you see, you gotta wait till it's completely dry to do this. It just erases just like that. So we got that side done. And then we're going to just do this side. See, it just goes away. But you got to make sure you put enough paint on it too. Otherwise it will bleed through if you don't put enough paint on it. But it's an easy fix. It's not a big deal. And you just kind of go up there, and we will redo the hands and redo the background again. Okay. So, while we're waiting for the hands to actually dry where the hands were, when it dries you can put on more blue if it starts showing through. I'm going to talk a little more about this, what I did. Now some people will go in circle motions to make it look more cloudy, and that's what I did. Some people will stiffle, and some people will just start white and just go all the way down and just make a half circle without any clouding or anything around it. And then they'll maybe add the clouding at the edge or whatever. Now with once you get done doing that, you'll see in the picture that there's little streaks that come down from the light. Let me get a paintbrush here. And what you're going to do is put white paint on your brush. Not too much though. You want just maybe a little bit. You don't want a lot. Just kind of start here though, because you know, as you see, it's kind of white, and then you can streak it down like so if you so desire. And you can streak it down wherever you would like. Hopefully you can see those streaks. You can have more streaks or less streaks, and then you can kind of blend it in. I went like this motion kind of with a round brush to get the cloudy thing, to adjust that. But yeah, have fun with the streaks on where they go. If you happen to go down over Jesus by accident, that's okay too, because this is light. You can't really mess up light. When you get done with that, we're going to go down here towards the water now. And when you see a person in water, you usually see these ripples that take effect that are like rings. And what we're going to do is little rings. Sorry, I'm switching paintbrushes so much, but I'll find a paintbrush here that I can use. What we're going to do is we're going to paint a ring like that, but not totally touching the grass either. So I'm going to get white. And this is all a clean brush. And you're not actually going to go right up to Jesus either. It's going to be, when you do the white, make sure it's a little bit of white, not a lot. And you just kind of want to leave the indication there's a ring, not do the whole ring. Just kind of so it looks good. And rings are going to come out like this. Now in the painting of the picture online, you'll see there's darker blue even down here. I'm going to paint in the darker blue. And we're just going to leave those white rings right there, just kind of as a guideline. Not that it might not be our permanent rings. But we want to get a darker blue. Dark blue is, hopefully you can find darker than what we had used on here. And if you can't, add very little black, because black is very strong. Let's see here, I've got to find my black. Kind of have stuff everywhere. But barely barely dip in some black with the color you used for here, if you use the darkest blue that you have. And you want the blue to overwhelm the blue. The blue overwhelming the black, sorry. If you have too much black, it will turn gray. But if it's too gray, it may not look that good. But a little gray is okay too if it turns out that way. But if you got too much gray, you can wait for it to dry again and repaint it. Especially if you do something like, let's say like this. I'm going to paint it real thin so it dries really, really fast. Just give you an example. It starts looking really great like this, and you're like trying to get it all the way across the canvas. Stop, wait for it to dry, and just paint your regular blue over it. And mine may not be dry enough, but it'll take away a lot of it. And actually, if you leave some of it behind and blend it into this right here, it'll look pretty good. And how you do that is just kind of add it into the water and just kind of go up. So you just kind of work it up. So it looks like it was meant to be there and not actually, even though it wasn't. You kind of want to work the water to where it is a little darker underneath. And don't be afraid if it turns gray. You can use the gray. Blue and gray are really closely related, so that's why it is turning gray, if it does on you. So you just kind of want to work it up into here, even if it takes your guidelines for water away. I may even change my guidelines. You just kind of work it. And if the blending brush helps you to blend it up into here, that is probably the easiest brush to use instead of the brush I'm trying to use. In fact, I probably wouldn't even use the brush that I'm using right now to do it if you're just starting, because blending can be hard if you don't have the right brush to help you along. But yeah, let's see, this is turning gray. I'm going to add a little more blue. But yeah, start at the bottom maybe and then work it up into this. And then you should have a little bit of a darker color underneath this blue. And if it doesn't look like it changed much, that's okay. This is just kind of adding another layer of tint to the painting to make it look a little more realistic. Like the more you add on top of the water, the more it's going to look like water. So if you just want to do something basic, that's okay too. And don't worry if your painting doesn't look exactly like mine, because I'm sure a lot of you might be more talented than me doing it. Everybody has their own level and gifts. And some of it takes practice. So this is just teaching you the basic things you can do to make stuff or to paint things. It's not really a class that I'm doing to do like a professional painting or anything. You'll find the one online probably looks a lot better than the one I'm doing, because I'm sure a professional did that one. And now that I got the blue here, I'm going to quick go back up here and fix these hands while I let this blending dry. So we're going back to the hands. What we're going to do with the hands is kind of like we did before, but this time, since I whited a lot of my blue, I did a lot of white and blue together to make the blue lighter, because I didn't want my background blue to be as dark as it was. I'm going to try to match this color with the background again. And you might have a lot of background color left when you're done. And that's what I'm doing. That's all I'm doing is just matching the background color I used. And then I'm just kind of carefully going around this. So as you see, the hand is totally gone. And it looks like the regular background again. I'm glad actually this mistake actually happened in a way, because you can see how to fix it. Because when you're just starting to learn to paint, knowing how to fix some of it is really beneficial, because a lot of people get discouraged when they don't know how to fix it right away. And you can feel free to comment if you have a problem along the way with this painting on how to fix it. And I'll do my best to explain how to fix it. It'll be different than when I'm in person though. Being in person makes a big difference, but I'll try my best online to help you fix it. Or even if you have any questions, you can ask questions. I'm not going to pretend to know every answer though, so if I don't know the answer, I'll just say, you know, I don't really know. I'll check into it. So we're going to let the hands dry a little more now that I fixed the background. We're going to go more into the water again now. And what you want to do with the water is you want to just do different layers of whites and blues, and you just kind of make it look a little more like water. See if I can find the blue brush here. There we go. Now with the example of our picture of painting, they kind of just did swishy stuff like that, just random swishy stuff, like it didn't even matter where it went. Now I did it in light so you can see it, but they actually did it in dark. So what I'm going to do is go over it with dark now, but don't do the white like I just did. I'm grabbing the dark now. And if you did the swishy thing with the white, that's okay too. But you want it to be, get rid of some of this white. With water, water has so many different colors and dimensions, and as far as coloring and shading, that anything almost goes in water. There's no rhyme or certain pattern or anything you need to do. Now if you like the choppy pattern, I do kind of what they did in the picture. Now the blue I have that I'm using, it's like a blue jean blue. probably even say blue jean on it. I'm not real sure. But I'm just kind of doing back and forth X type things across. Just don't be particular or anything, because the crazier it looks like that, probably the better the picture turns out. So, and they actually have crazy stuff that almost goes up to Jesus there. So, just kind of smooth it out if it's a little too much in one area or another. But then you kind of got your variation of water waves and stuff. And then, once you're kind of happy with it, your water, at least the shading coloring part, we're going to let it dry, and then we're going to go on to the next part. Next we're going to do a dark blue again, right where we kind of put guidelines for a circle, because water kind of circles around a person. And you kind of just want to blend it in. You don't really want a whole bunch of white really showing. You want to cover the white up. The white is just kind of a guideline to show you where to kind of put it. And then just kind of blend it in with the X's down here by doing X's again. And you're gonna might have to use a little more blue in some spots. Then kind of bring the X over. Just kind of blend it in. It's not a huge thing if you don't do the circle. Like, nobody's really gonna tell much when they actually look at the picture, because the main focus of the picture is Jesus, and the splashing water is what people are going to see. I have to leave this dry a little bit. You can do more X's on both sides. Make sure you leave different colors in between the X's. Next, we're going to go back up to the hands that we messed up. Well, that I messed up. We're going to do those. I'm going to go with a really light brown. That's the brown with a lot of white and very little brown. And we're going to retry the little lobster claw that we made last time. But we want to make sure that we're starting at the right spot too. And you might have to take time to proportion the hand the way you want it. Fill this in here, just to get it the right shape that you want. Because mine turned a little fuzzy, I might have to reposition this lobster hand again. Might have to redo this one. On my touch-ups, I'm going to have to redo that a little bit, but and then you want to do your arm over here, and you want to make sure that you start at the top of the robe. We don't want to do the same mistake again that I did. And I'm going to kind of fix my fingers here because I think I'm rushing it a little bit. So, and if you need time to pause the video at this time just to fix the hands, that's fine. I'm going to do that as well. And So, what I did was I put new hands in, just like we did at the beginning. We started with just the straight hand color, and then we added a shadow behind the hands, and this time we made sure that the fabric was by the by the hand top part. I mean the hand on top of the fabric like that. And now the more fun part is starting to come. Actually, this will be the fun, probably one of the funnest parts of the painting. But first, we got to do a little painting of white on Jesus. And what we're doing there is we're just putting a few white lines just to kind of add in another dimension of his robe. Oh, maybe a little triangle there, or just to add a little more emphasis on fabric. The more colors you add, the more realistic it'll look. So white is a good highlight there. And you want to add just very little stripes with the white. And you probably want to add it just to this one side, not the whole thing, because it'll just be too much. And then once you've added that, we're going to go straight into the fun part. Next, we're going to do our X's again on the water. I can find the right brush here. Okay, I just got a flat brush here like before when we did the X's. What you're going to do with the water now is you're going to keep the water kind of down below Jesus. You're not going to go up. You're just going to kind of stay down below Jesus, maybe about that far. But you really don't want to add, like, keep your lines to the stripes that you're making. Don't blend them so much. If you want littler stripes, you can put the X's through. And maybe since it's darker on this side, you might want to start on this side and do a little darker on this side. But you don't really want to go up into this space like I did here. I'll probably fix that when we're done with the painting. But now you can kind of rub this a little bit in, but very, very lightly, just so it shows that it's water. Now we're doing a little bit of the blending and pulling down just a little bit. Now, some of these didn't get very dark or very, so you might want to add a little more paint to bring it down. But just kind of look for a spot where you can bring down the white in the water, like maybe here, there's a lot of stuff there. But this white water actually goes all the way across to the edge of the painting. I kind of stopped in the middle, but we want to go all the way to the edge with it. And you want to leave some blue underneath here. Don't cover up the blue. So you can just kind of do the motions and strokes that I'm doing for that. And the white actually goes all the way up here at the end of Jesus's robe there. So, and some of you actually might have Jesus up higher like I did, and some of you might have him lower, but just always start by his robe down. And then always leave white or dark blue on the bottom. And that's pretty good for that, because you don't want to add too much and you don't want to add too little either. And if you want, you can go through with some blue. I don't know if that picture really shows that, but if you think you overdid a couple of areas, you can kind of put some blue in it. And like I said, the more colors and stuff you add, the better it looks. But if you add too much, that's not good either. So I'm just going to do just a little bit. Maybe bring the color over here, because I kind of overdid it maybe there a little. Maybe I'll lose a little darker there. And next is going to be a technique for the splashes and the splatters everywhere. You're going to want to get a blender brush. I'm going to use the size 1/2, but you can use a little bigger than this. What you're going to do is you're going to get this brush wet, completely wet. Then you're going to dip it in white paint, and then you're going to go like this with your fingers to make the splatters. And then we're going to make little spots that aren't splatters, and we're going to make those spots first. But when it comes to the splatter, you're going to go like this across the brush, and it's going to be a wet brush with paint on it. So here we go. First I'm going to put white on this brush, and that's my picture there. You're going to bring down some white, and they show like some white being drove down like this. Now you want to be very, very light touched on this. You do not want to have a hard touch, because if you push down too much, then it's going to look really, really bad. And it's going to be probably more than you anticipated for. So they show some water coming down this way off the robe and off the hands a little bit. So, and you can always adjust it to what you kind of like. If you did too much white, use a light blue again, and then start over, just to do those little splatters. And then down here too, it has a little bit of water coming down here off the robe, because he's coming up out of water, so you want to really get some of the water detail in there. And then next, now you're going to wet your brush, completely wet it so it's soaking wet. Then kind of let it drip off a little bit into your water cup before you actually put it in the paint. And then you're going to put it in the paint, the very tip of your brush, and really load it. And now we're going to do the little splatter thing. And you want to put the brush up like this to control it, so you can control it better. 4 fingers and then thumb. And you want some splatters by the hand. And if the splatters don't look right or whatever, you know, water just goes everywhere when you come out. Now some splatters are going to be like over Jesus' hair, over his robe. But make sure you get above his hands really good, because they showed in the picture quite a splatter over his hands. And you might actually have to dip your brush into water again and do the paint thing and do the splatter. But, oops, got some on the background there. We'll have to wipe that off. Now, if you get a little wild and it happens to get on something like this background over here, acrylic is very easy to clean up. Water usually just takes it right out. As far as fabric, just throw it in the washing machine. Don't dry it until the paint is out, because drying it will set the paint into the fabric. You don't want to do that. So, and that's the painting. You can put as much or as little water or paint as little or as much water as you want, and I hope you enjoyed your time, and I hope to see pictures of everybody's paintings that even tried, because it's really neat to see how everybody's different from everybody else's. And it also gives you kind of like, oh, maybe I could do that better, or this person looked like they did this, and maybe that'll work for me, and then you can give it a try. So, hope you enjoyed. Bye.